Hi, so today we're going to talk about choice boards. And if you just Google choice boards and go to Google Images, you can see lots of different options that people have created and how they go about creating choice boards. And essentially, all this is giving the student options or choices for completing an activity. And this aligns with the idea that students should have a choice in what they do. Students are more motivated when they have some say in their activity that they're going to complete or the product that they're going to complete. And that students, sometimes can express themselves or show their knowledge better using one tool over the other. So, case in point of not always giving a quiz, not always giving a project, not always giving a paper, because students respond differently to different types of activities, even if the content's all the same. So, here are some choice boards. Again, if you just search images on Google of different choice boards, some people have made them for particular subject areas. Some people have done it for things like writing prompts, to where there's different prompts in each of the boards, and then the student picks one. Some do it to where it's more of a bingo, to where you have to pick, so many. So, like if you look at this one is a bingo, to where there's a free space and you have to make a whole line, of some kind, but you can pick any of these, and all of these squares have a different activity for you to do. So, essentially, that's what we're going to create here for a particular standard. You get to pick your standard K through 5. And so, there's multiple ways you can create a choice board. One of them is just a simple Word document or a simple Google Doc, where you have a table, to make your squares, and the student would just highlight or cross off, if this was printed off, the ones that they completed. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is make it a little bit more digital, and that is using Google Slides. So this is one that I've created using Google Slides. And my topic, my standard I've picked is about compound words, a second grade standard using compound words and having students understand the individual meanings of the words and how they come together to create a new word. So there's just the opening slide. So here is what my choice board itself looks like. And so with this one, instead of putting in squares, instead of making them look like this, to where they look more like a table, instead of having it look like this, I created one that looks like this. There isn't a right or wrong of exactly how your choice board is supposed to look. And in this case, I broke it down to different types of learners. So we have visual learners who respond best by seeing, auditory by hearing, physical by doing, verbal by writing or saying, partners, which is more of the collaborative aspect, they work well by collaborating with others, or logical, those who work best or learn best by solving a puzzle, or finding out like the answer to a mystery, that type of thing, putting logic together. So, the way this would work is, this is my choice board, and whenever they click on, they would choose which one that they want, and they would click on that, and that would take them. So, if we selected visual, it would take us to the activity for the visual learners. And I said, you like to learn by seeing, and then in kid friendly terms, written in words that they would understand, I explained to them what their activity is going to be. And then they would go to the next slide, and that would be the one that they would do for that particular activity. So, when they look at it via slideshow view, they would be able to click on whichever one. So if I wanted to do the partner one, it would take me to the partner one to do. If I wanted to do one that was going to be, if I wanted to do the physical one, I would come and click on physical, and then it would give me the physical assignment to do. So some of these include technology, some of them don't. So, not every single one of your activities has to be a technology based activity, but it just can be something that applies to the standard and applies to the different type of learning style that I'm looking at. So, for example, in the visual, they're playing a matching game. because that's helping them to see. And so in this case, they're going to have a printout of this, and they're going to cut it apart and do a matching game, and turn over the words and see if that makes a word. So if they turned over pan and cake, that makes pancake. If they turned over pan and pan eye is not a word. And then they would have a journal where they keep the words that they create and explain the meaning for. So that would be the visual activity. For the auditory activity, they would go into their Epic account, which is a program that will allow students to access books based upon their Lexile level. Some of them have read to me features where it will read to them, and they're going to listen to those books and listen for compound words and record those in their journal. So that would be the audio one. For the physical one, they're going to be looking at it more like on the physical one, they're going to be looking at it more like a scavenger hunt because they're learning by doing. So in this case, they have a scavenger hunt. So in this case, they start with this word. They scan this QR code. It gives them a word. And then they come to the next slide and they scan a QR code that gives them a word that would make a new word, a compound word. And then in doing so, it would give them a new word, and then they scan to try to find that. So it's kind of like a scavenger hunt. So that's physical. And then we have verbal. So in this case, they are given words that are compound words, and they're going to incorporate those into an 8-line poem. They can include the compound word or the individual word, or they can combine these words together to make new words for their verbal poem that they're going to create. They're going to write that out. Then we have partners, which is working with someone else. And so in this case, they're going to work together to create a Google quiz. And with this, they are going to answer questions about about compound words. So I have an area for them to scan it if they want to scan it, or they can just, if they're online, they can just use this link to go to the Google form to do it. So I'll show you what this looks like. So for this one is the compound word quiz that we've created. So here they would create the compound word. What is the compound word? This is a lady, and so I need to pick what item would go with it. So lady and bug would make a new word. And then this one would be cup, corn, cup pie, or cupcake would be the word. Flour bread, flower pot, flower bat, flower table. So it'd be flower pot. This would be water hat, water brush, watermelon, or water tub, and it would be watermelon, of course. Star pizza, star fish, star bear, or star wheel, it would be starfish. And then when they submit it, it will allow them to see their score. It shows them their score, as well as it would give them feedback as well. So there we have that set up for them. So that was a quiz that they could take, a Google Forms quiz. So that was part of the choice board for partners. And then we have the last one, which is logical. And in this one, they are going to complete a closed passage, where basically I've given them a passage and they have to fill in the words. So I spent all summer outside. As soon as I saw the blank light, so sunlight, I was up and dressed. I ran bare blank outside in the soft green grass. I ran barefoot, etc. So this is solving the puzzle or completing the closed passage there. So these are the different ones that I've created. So this would be my choice board. So now let me show you about how now that you know what a choice board is, let me show you how you would go about creating one using a Google slide. You can choose to make your own choice board using tables within Google Slides, but another way to do it is to find a template, which is what I used for the one that I created here. I used a template. So that template came from Slides Mania, which is a great tool to use to find really nice and pretty PowerPoint templates, or for Google Slides or PowerPoint. And some of those can also be ones that you can use for choice boards. So if you go to Slides Mania and in this search area you search choice boards, it will pull up different ones that you can use. So this was the one that I used, but you can pick, a variety of different ones to work with you or to work for you. And so, like, I'll just look at this one for example. So in this one, it works very similar to the one that I picked. It has a little theme going on. Here you have your choice board itself, where they would click on the different activity and it would jump to whichever slide that they were using. So, this one's already kind of pre-built for you. So you can choose to use it. So you can come down here and you would open it in Google Slides to be able to use it as a Google Slide one, and we would use this template, and now it's really just a matter of replacing your information with what's in the template here. So notice on slide 2, which is where the choice board actually is, that they automatically have this one linked to slide 3. So when they click on it, it's going to jump to this one. Activity 3 is going to automatically jump to activity 3. So in this case, you're really just changing out the words and the images for these. So in this case, you might have activity 1, and this one might be for visual learners, and this one might be for auditory learners, and so on and so forth. So you would just change, which one it is for. And so notice that when you do the slideshow and you go to this choice board, when you click on the visual learners, it's automatically going to take you to the one that goes with it. So in that case, you would come here and change the text, and say for visual learners, and then you would detail out what the visual learner is to do for that particular activity. And so you would want to make sure on the homepage slide somewhere to put the actual standard that you're working with, and you want to make sure that each of your activities does meet that standard. So whether they're visual, whether they're auditory, they're all meeting that standard. So in my case, the standard was to use the knowledge of meaning of individual words to predict meaning of compound words. Every single one of these, despite which one you use, they're working with compound words and understanding how the two individual words have different meaning, but they come together to make a new meaning of a new word. All of these are meeting that standard. They're just doing so in a different way. So you want to make sure that you do that with all of these. It can't be that the visual learners do something really intense and the auditory learners listen to an audiobook and that's it. They all have to have the same outcome. The product doesn't have to look the same, but they still all have to meet the standard. So those are some different things that you can use if you want to use a template. So let me show you kind of on the background how these things work if you don't want to use a template, but if you don't want to use a template, how you can set one up for yourself, as well as just so you kind of know how this background, how this would work if you want to create one later on, not using one of these templates. So this one won't look nearly as pretty as the other ones, but I want you to know the science of how it's done. So we'll start with our title slide. And so for this one, I'm just going to create a table, and I'll create, six blocks. And so this one will be visual, this one will be auditory, this one will be working in groups, this one will be independent. You could go about it the longer way, and that would be to go to insert and then insert link, and then you would be able to pick all the different slides that you have available, and then that would link in. And so when you preview this, you're able to click on this and it immediately takes you to the next one. So I'll show you again with another one just so you can kind of see. So I'm going to add in another slide here, and we'll make this one for group learners, we'll just say, and we'll add in our information. I'll change these to be white text boxes. I'll change the background to be some other color. And then here under group learners, I'll make this box to be the same color so at least they match. And then again, I'm just going to highlight this, insert, link, and then it would let me pick whichever ones that I had. So this one was the one that hasn't been linked yet. And so when we go to slideshow, we click on groups, bam, there you have it. So that's the background work as to what's happening with these slides, of how they're getting this to link to this slide. They've just spent a lot more time making it nice and pretty. But that's the background of it. So when you create your choice board, when you are creating the choices here, so when you're doing it this way, what I want you to do is do it for different learning styles. Keep in mind that when you create different types of choice boards, you might not do it for different learning styles. You might just list different activities. You might do it for different things, but this one we're going to use learning styles. So when you are in your Google Classroom, you'll be able to see there's a link to the 8 different types of learning styles. So you want to read up on those and see what those are about. And here's the different ones. And so in this case, you're only going to want to create activities for 6. So of the 8, you can just pick the 6 that you can come up with the best activity for, or the ones that you think fit best for that particular standard. So you don't have to use all 8. You can just pick the 6 that you want to do, and then you would use those as your headers, and then you would create your activities from there. And you're welcome to create your own, or you're welcome to use one either at Slide Mania or at another one that already has like a choice board template built. If you just Google choice board templates, I'm sure that there are probably plenty out there for you to do. But the goal of this activity is to, one, help you understand how to do this linking that I showed you here, just so that you know how to do it with Google Slides. And then as well as to get you thinking about how you can take a standard and make multiple activities and give students some type of choice in their interactions, and how they're going to work through an assignment to show their knowledge of the standard. Now, when you do this, I wouldn't just jump right out and start making this. What I would do on paper or in a Google document is write out and think carefully about my activities first. I wouldn't start doing this or this in terms of the technology side of building out your choice board to begin with. I would write on paper, okay, so I'm going to, first of all, I would look at these learning styles and decide which of the 6 I want to use for my standard. I'd pick my standard, decide which 6 of these I think is going to align best with my standard, and then I want to come up with a really good activity for each of these, and then I would lay those out and write those down, and then only at that point would I come and start putting these together. So you might want to write, in my case, I had visual learners about creating compound words. What would be a good visual activity for that? And then I would create that, write that out for them, give them the resource that they need. And again, make sure that everything is included in this slide. So if you say use this worksheet to do whatever, you need to include the image of the worksheet. You need to include everything that's going to be involved in doing the activity in here. So they should be able to have this one slide, and that should be everything that they need to be successful and to do all of the activities. It should be a standalone thing. So don't say, go and go to this activity, go to this worksheet and fill this out. We need the actual image. So I could have said, match words. What words? I included those here. This one, play a matching game, okay, or play a scavenger hunt. I gave you the actual scavenger hunt here. So it's not as easy as just listing out the activities that you want to do. You're going to actually have to make the activities, yourself. Some of them will be more complicated than others, but you're going to actually have to list those out. So that's going to be the process for creating the choice board. Now, one of your activities in the choice board, it can be for any of these, any of the 6 that you pick. Mine was with partners. Yours can be with any of these that you want. is a Google quiz, and that is done using Google Forms. And there's a separate video in there for that, but I'll show you really quickly how to create a Google form. And mine was done here, the one where we clicked on the different images to make the word. So, it had a picture of the lady, and you had to pick the bug to make the ladybug. So, let me show you really quickly how to build one of those for your Google slide. So your first step is going to be to create a Google form, and you can get to Google Forms in your waffle area in your course, or you can just Google Forms and it'll take you into that. So this is the one that I just created with the compound words earlier that we used within my Google Slides, but let's create a new one really quick so you can see how it's done from scratch. So Google Forms by default is a survey tool, but there's a trick to make it turn into a quiz. So let's just make one. We'll do another one about compound words. So we can give it a title, give it a description. Okay, so here we just build it out literally just like a survey. So all right, so in this case, I added in my question what word could be added to make a new word. Part one is water, melon, hive, or help. So, and I can continue to add in options. I can make it a different type of answer choice. In self-graded quizzes, though, the way that you would use Google Forms for a quiz, you would want to make it a multiple choice. So then I can just add myself in another question, and I would go on just like you would almost be making a quiz, or if you were making a survey, you would just add in your questions. So let's do one that has pictures in it like I did before. So use the pictures to make a new word. And then I would add in a picture, and then from here I could upload a picture, or what's really easier is to use Google image search right here. So like I did with this one, I would search for a picture of a lady. So we'll pick this one, insert in. It'll initially make it really big. We can shrink it down. And then I can put in images here. A hive. So lady hive obviously isn't a word, so that's not going to be the correct answer. Lady stove. Obviously that's not a real word, so that won't be the correct answer. Or a lady bug. All right. And so we'll insert that in, and then they should get the clue. Use the pictures to make a new word, lady bug. Okay, so you would go on so and so forth, creating that. Once that is all done, now we're going to turn it into a quiz. Because as of right now, it's functioning just like a survey. So it's not, grading them, giving them any feedback or that kind of thing. So in that case, we're going to go to settings and see there's an option right here, make this a quiz. So we're going to turn that into a quiz. We can have it to where it grades immediately after the submission or later for manual review. If you're doing multiple choice questions, you can have it immediately grade, which is helpful for like a student self-check, that kind of thing. So I encourage for this activity, do it on the immediate one. So you can let them see which questions they answered incorrectly. You can let them see the correct answers. Maybe I don't want to do that because I want to let them see which ones they missed, but I don't want to tell them the correct answer because I want them to try again and get the correct answer. And then they can let them see the point value that they've earned. And then you can determine how many points each one is worth, 1 point, 5 points, whatever. And then you can see how the responses are collected. So you could have it to where they collect the email addresses. Keep in mind, in this case, the student's going to have to log into their Google account to be able to do the survey. So that might work for older students, especially if you're wanting to collect these results for actual data, for actual grades. If it's just a self check and you don't care how people answered, you just want them to practice, then I wouldn't turn this on because it is one more step that they're having to log in. Also, if this is made for younger kids who don't have Google accounts set up, I would not turn this on because it's going to make them have to log in. If you do turn it on, however, you can have them send a responder send a copy of their response. It will email them a copy of their test that they've done, their quizzes that they've done, so that they can see the results and have it. And then you can limit it to only one response if you want to, but again, that's going to require them to sign in. So I'm going to leave all that off because I don't want people having to sign in to answer my questions. And then down here below, you can have it to where it's going to automatically collect their email addresses by default. Again, I don't want to turn that on for this particular one, as well as make all the questions required to where they have to answer them. And I did turn that on because I want them to answer all the questions. So now we can go back to our questions and it's turned it into a quiz. So what it's going to ask us is when we click to edit this question, notice down here at the bottom it's going to say answer key. And that's because now that it is a quiz, it is asking you to pick the correct answer. So what word could be used to make a new word? Water. Melon is the correct answer. They get 1 point for it. And then I can add in feedback. So if they answer it incorrectly, I can say, oh, what word would go with melon to make a new word? So you can give them feedback. So if they answer it incorrectly, they get a prompt. If they answer it correctly, you can say, yes, watermelon is made up of water plus melon. Okay, now you can just add in text answers, but you can also add in a web link. So link to this and the text to display. So I could add in a YouTube link or a link to a website for them to go to, or I could add in a YouTube video. So maybe I find a video about watermelons. Oh, I would have to find it out and post it in. I won't do this for now, but so that will be that could be a link that you could put into here for them to watch a video or to have a link to be able to click on to for the results of it. So here what we have is the correct answer is melon. It's 1 point. If they answer correctly, this feedback is what shows. If they answer incorrectly, this word that this is the feedback that shows. Same thing here. I click on it. Down at the bottom, it's going to ask me to do the answer key. So same thing here, I would choose answer key. I would pick what the correct answer is. I would add in the answer feedback. And then I've added in my correct and my incorrect and my correct answer feedback. And remember, I can add in video or links there. So there it is. So now I've turned, and you can check to see your total points to make sure that you've added everything in correctly. I have 2 questions in this quiz, and there are 2 questions here, or 2 points here, 1 point apiece. You can make sure that all that is set up correctly. Okay, so now I'm ready to send this out. Before I do so, though, you can do some aesthetic changes. You can customize the theme here. You can pick different backgrounds if you want to. You can choose an image to upload as the header of the slide if you want to make it look nice and pretty. So you're welcome to do all of that, and that's just theming information. If you want to preview as to how this is going to work, you can preview it, and this is what it would look like. And then, of course, the students would answer the questions, they would submit it, and then they would be able to view their score, and then it would tell them how they answered correctly or incorrectly. They got this one correct. They answered melon, it was correct. It gave them that feedback that we put in. This one was answered incorrectly. They got 0 points for it, and then it would give you the feedback there. And then I have this one set up to where they could submit another response and keep on going with it until they actually completed it. Notice here under responses, it will give me data as to people who have completed my Google quiz. Now this one, it's not going to tell me under looking at individuals. It will show me the individual responses, but it's not going to tell me who submitted it because remember I have it set to where it's not causing them to log in. So this one is the questions. So this is going to let you see some data on the individual questions. This would let you see how many answered it correctly or incorrectly. So this is really good data to let you see, generally speaking, how well did everybody answer this question. Did a lot of people get it wrong? Did a lot of people get it right? So that lets you look at it by the individual question. This one lets you look at it by the individual person who submitted it. So look at each individual's responses. When you're looking at general patterns, though, I think the question is going to be a little bit better because you'll be able to see how people did on it, each question. And then you have the summary where you're able to see the averages of how people scored. And then it'll also even give you a list of the frequently missed questions, the ones that most people missed, as well as some reports here. This doesn't help us too much because only one person has done it right at this minute, but it would be great data to have when you're looking at patterns to see, did my students understand what I'm learning or did they not? Do I need to go back and reteach it? How does that need to work? Now, if this were one where the students had to log in to submit their responses, then it would also tell you their actual names so that you could populate that into the Google Classroom gradebook if you wanted to, or keep it in an Excel document or whatever. But for this case, I just wanted it to be practice. So, but that information will be there. So now, how do I get the link to this? Well, first of all, I want to change the name of it. So I'm going to click on that and name it Compound Words. But now what I would want to do is choose Send. And then again, remember, I don't want to collect emails because that's going to make them have to log in. But I want to get the link. I'm just going to shorten it here. So this is the link that I'm going to need to do my, the link that I'm going to use for students to get to my to this Google quiz. But again, I'm not going to collect responses because I want to make this just to practice. So then at that point, this is where you would put it in here. So as a group, try this quiz. And then we would just do insert, and we're going to do our link and apply that, and then there it is ready to go, linking to it. And then so students would click on that, it would link them out to this quiz, which is really a Google form, and then they would complete it. And then from there you would be able to fill it out just like we did earlier in the video. So that's how you would do that. So with your choice board, you want to at least one of the choices to be, let me go back to the one that I created. You want at least one of your choices to be one of those quizzes. You'll be required to create one of those quizzes within there. I did mine on partners. You're welcome to do it elsewhere. So you want to make sure before you start creating this that you do read through my example, because your activities will need to be up to par, if not more involved or sophisticated than the ones I created. You're not going to be able just to say, do a matching game, do this quiz. This one was short and sweet and simple just because I wanted to show you the process of how things link together. But you really want to spend probably the majority of your time thinking about the activities you want to do and how sophisticated they need to be and what you need to do to put those together. So once you get done with that, you will need to get the share link to your choice board and send that into Google, submit that into Google Classroom. So again, this was the one that I've created. It's all been linked up and ready to go. I'm going to choose share. And of course, like with all these, I want to make sure that I have it to where anyone with the link can view. Don't leave it unrestricted because that's going to make me have to log in to see it. So, and I have to get special access. So we're not going to do that. We're going to do anyone with on the link can view it. And then I'm going to copy that link, and that is what I would submit into my Google Classroom. That's the link that I would post there. And again, there's always a great way to check it by logging out of your Google Classroom, clicking on your response and seeing if you can open it. And in that case, if you can, then it has been shared correctly. So that's how you're going to make your choice board.